Hi everyone, it's Agnieszka Murdoch from 5 Minute Language. Welcome to my channel. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already and give this video a thumbs up. I really appreciate it. So my channel is all about teaching you how to learn foreign languages and teaching you how to learn English. So today's lesson is all about English and it's specifically about how to be able to speak English rather than just understand it. Are you ready? Let's get started. So when I was learning English for the first time, I got to the point where I could understand a lot, but I just wasn't able to speak because my vocabulary was just so limited. I just couldn't really remember the words that I thought I knew when I needed them in a conversation. And so it felt quite demotivating and really it held me back because I felt like I was getting closer and closer to being advanced, but my speaking just wasn't there yet. So I'm sure this is a problem that you have encountered before yourself, and I've got some tips for you on how you can address it. So the first thing I want to say to you is that you should learn vocabulary in context. So whenever you're learning a new word or a new phrase, rather than just checking what the translation of that word or phrase is in a dictionary, make sure that you look up lots and lots of examples of sentences that use that word or phrase. So for example, you're learning the word interesting in English, don't just check what it means. Check what it means and then look up some examples. So every dictionary has lots of examples of sentences. You can look up the same word in many different dictionaries online and they will give you different examples, and that's great because the more you have, the better. And basically the point is to see that word in context, in a sentence, rather than just in isolation. So the problem with not being able to speak is often that you can recognize the word, but you're not sure, you're just not familiar with how this word can be used in natural speech. So hopefully that tip will help you overcome it to a certain extent. So my second tip relates to the first one. So once you've looked up your word and examples of sentences, I really encourage you to create your own sentences straight away. So make up your own sentence that can be very similar to one of the examples, and then try to make a few more. That way you're not just learning, but you're also producing sentences in English, which is kind of like an active way of learning, and it really helps solidify that new vocabulary in your memory, but also trains you to use it in conversations. So my third tip is about reading, and I always go on about reading because it's such an important aspect of learning English and any other language. So do a lot of reading. I probably spend more than 50% of my time, sometimes 70% of my time probably, just reading. And you know, reading gives you the ability to see language in context. So it links back to the first tip that I told you about, which is all about learning in context. And when you read, you can see those words and phrases that you've learned before in context again, and that gives you a little bit more confidence and knowledge about how to use it in natural language in a conversation. So my fourth tip is try to avoid using your native language when learning English. And that sounds quite obvious, but you know, many people actually use a lot of their native language when they learn English, and mainly to translate different phrases and words that they're learning. But actually, what you should be doing instead is, once you reach a certain level, try to use a monolingual dictionary. So a dictionary that just has definitions in English. And that will basically allow you to understand what the words that you're learning mean, but without giving you the translation, the exact translation in your native language. So you'll internalize that word without being then tempted to translate it when you're speaking. So my next tip is learning stock phrases. So a stock phrase is a phrase that you can use in many different situations when you're speaking English, in many different contexts, and something that you will be using a lot. So for example, a stock phrase can be "Oh, that's really interesting." And that's something that you can say in a conversation when you are reacting to something somebody else is saying. "Oh, that's interesting." So when you learn all these different phrases, when you're in a conversation with somebody, you will find it easier to join in, and you will become more confident about speaking, not just understanding, because you will have those phrases ready. You will have them ready, and you can just use different ones depending on the situation. So my next tip is related to the previous one. It's about learning phrases that will help you start conversations or start a new point in a conversation. So this is basically something that will help you with not finishing a conversation just because you feel like you've got nothing else to say or you don't know what to say. When you have those phrases that help you start a conversation or a new topic, you will be able to just move on to that more naturally. So my next tip is practice speaking every day. And I've got a separate video about that, which I'm going to link to down below. Make sure you check it out. But there are different things you can do to practice speaking English every single day, even if you don't live in an English-speaking country, you don't have anyone to speak to in English. There are little things you can do to make sure that you're practicing all the time. And my final tip is always remember that the other person is there because they're interested in what you've got to say. So they're not there to judge you or correct your mistakes or, assess your ability to speak English. They are there because they're interested in you. They want to have a conversation with you, and they're listening to what you're saying rather than how you're saying it. So just remember that, and hopefully that thought can give you some extra confidence when speaking English. So I hope you enjoyed my video, and make sure you give it a thumbs up and comment in the section below about what you're doing to improve your English speaking. And I'll see you next time. Bye!